You guys ever get that random thing that you're thinking about and you just start kind of going down the whole rabbit hole of YouTube or Google or whatever it is that you're doing, and you just keep finding out more and more information? You start thinking about stuff like, damn, am I the only one that does this? I don't know. Anyway, I saw a meme a little bit ago, and actually, I'm going to pause this real quick so I can go show you the meme. Okay, you know what sucks? I can't find it. It was on some random page on Facebook and I responded to it. Anyway, the meme was as this. It was Jerry Rice, it was Jim Brown, it was Mean Joe Green, and it was Lawrence Taylor. And it said, of these four men, who is the weakest link? Which is a great question because you think, okay, all four of these guys are Hall of Famers. So you have that going for each one of them. Each one of them won a championship, maybe not a Super Bowl. Jim Brown didn't win a Super Bowl, but Jerry Rice has, I think, three Super Bowl championships. LT had two. Jim Brown, I think he won an NFL championship a couple times, and then of course Mean Joe Green had four with the Steelers in the '70s. So you got Hall of Fames, you got championships, you probably have single season records for each one of them, or close to, or MVPs and things like that. But weakest link. So okay, Jerry Rice considered one of the greatest, or maybe even the greatest player, not even just receiver, player of all time. I think he has a touchdown record all time. And then you also look at Jim Brown, considered also like the best athlete of all time to play in the NFL because he was also great at lacrosse at the University of Syracuse University, whatever. So those two guys automatically, right? And then you go to LT, right? LT often considered the greatest linebacker, maybe even the greatest defensive player of all time. So that's three greats of all time. And this is no disrespect to Mean Joe Green, but he's never been, as far as I've ever heard or read, he's never been considered in this modern era, even with all these years behind him, the greatest defensive lineman or defensive player of all time. He may have been really good at the time in which he played, which is great. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer, like I said, but I've never heard him considered to be the greatest defensive player of all time. And I'm going to turn on the Do Not Disturb just in case, I be getting these late night texts from these ladies. Anyway, so I took it to Joe Green. I'm like, all right, well, he's clearly the weakest link, and that sucks because he's great, right? And I started looking through the list of guys who had the single season sack record because that's a huge record, right? You start thinking about, okay, you got Michael Strahan, and I had to start looking and looking and looking, and I had to go here. Single season Al Baker. They didn't record sacks back in '78. They didn't start recording, I think, until '82. So obviously he wouldn't have gotten it, or he would have gotten it if they were recording it already. But also, don't forget, like Deacon Jones, this guy, man, he probably would have gotten it too. But anyway, yeah, so Strahan and TJ Watt, 22 and a half each, 20 years apart, which is just amazing that those guys got that record. That's just a great job. Then it made me think about how hard it was to get that record. Like Mark Gastineau said in '84, right here. See? Right there, '84, Mark Gastineau with 22 sacks. That 22 sacks since '84, since he said it. First of all, I mean, if we look at the rest of the people who've gotten 22 sacks, officially or unofficially, Deacon Jones did it two other times in '64 and '68, which is crazy because at '68, well, look at this. This is even crazier. 1968, Deacon Jones was 29 years old. Jared Allen in 2011, 29 years old, 22 sacks. Michael Strahan, 29 years old, 22 and a half sacks. No one over 30 has ever had 22 sacks or more, which is already hard to get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times it's been done. Nobody over 30 has ever gotten 22 sacks or more. And if you kind of keep scrolling, just to 20, we'll just do the 20s. How many times do you see somebody 30 years or older? Once, and it's Coy Bacon in 1976 when he played for the Bengals. I don't even know who that is. I am a football guru to a degree. I don't even know who that is. But anyway, Nobody over 30. But then I started thinking about, look, so how hard is it to get that sack record, right? So I started thinking, if you guys remember, the NFL Network used to have this top 10 NFL, or maybe it was NFL Films, whatever, top 10 records that will never be broken. And I think one of them, I don't want to say what it is because I haven't looked at the article yet, but I'm going to now. And where the hell is the damn thing? I need to post it right here. Bleacher Report has an article from 2011. So this is 12, almost 12 years ago. The 50 greatest single season performances in NFL history. So I know I'm thinking like we're going to see Eric Dickerson's on here. I don't know if Calvin Johnson had set the record yet for the Lions. I think it was after 2011 as far as the receiving yards. I know catches, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, that might be in there. Single season, golly. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. I'm thinking, I don't know if we're going to go team-wise, but obviously undefeated season, Dolphins 72. Someone might go the Patriots route 2007 team. Jerry Rice, 22 receiving touchdowns in a season. Like, there's a lot here. And LaDainian Tomlinson, I think, had like 26 to 28 touchdowns in one season. I know a couple years him and Priest Holmes were going back and forth, and clearly Tomlinson won that one out. But number 50, Jake Delhomme, simply a gamer in 03 for the Panthers. If it weren't for Delhomme, the Panthers would have gone 3-13 instead of 11-5. But they're saying here he set the NFL record for 8 game-winning drives in a season. 8 game-winning drives. That's pretty cool. Like, that means you were also losing. Which is a great point. Like, well, you were also losing, but you also have to show poise. Like, no matter what's happening in the game, you have to show poise in order to come back. So I give respect for that. But that's why they didn't win the Super Bowl, because they weren't very good. I mean, just the fact that those 8 games, had they gone the opposite way, their record would be completely flip-flopped from 11-5 to 3-13. That's crazy. 2009, Peyton Manning. Extremely good season for Manning. Besides losing the Super Bowl to the Saints, Manning posted a 99.9 quarterback rating with 33 touchdowns thrown and a 68% completion percentage. However, the most impressive thing of Manning's 09 season is that he set the NFL record for most comebacks in a single season, standing at 7. Now, wait a second. How does that compare to game-winning drives? I don't understand. Comebacks, I don't know exactly what their metric is for that, so I'll pass. Steve Walsh, 1990, all-time great. Well, sorry, not an all-time great. In fact, I bet none of you heard of him. Yes, I have, because I played Technical Super Bowl, and I know he was on the Saints. 1990, he was known as the comeback kid. He set an NFL record for most game-winning drives in a single season at 8. That's remarkable and all, but Walsh happened to do it with 2 separate teams, 4 with the Cowboys and 4 with the Saints. That's pretty cool. I did not know. I forgot that he played for the Cowboys. I think he also went to UCLA. Could be wrong, but I might be right. 01, Kurt Warner, 104.1 quarterback rating while completing 68% of his passes, 4,830 yards, 36 touchdowns. That's pretty cool. Greatest show on turf. Wow, 104.1 quarterback rating. That is just annihilating. Here it is. Chris Carter. I knew he'd be in here. 122 passes caught. That was a record in 95. And to think, just, 3 or 4 years before, it was Sterling Sharp getting 101, 102. Art Monk, 7 or 8 years before that, getting 100. And it was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Who could get 100? Because I remember Don Hutson and who's the other guy that used to play for the Packers? Not Max McGee. No, that was Don Hutson. I'm sorry. And then I'm thinking Charlie Hennigan. So a lot of guys, came before. A couple of them were able to hit that century mark for a season. Like I said, Monk and maybe Hennigan and Don Hutson. But for Carter to do it after Sharp had done it, and then Rice did it, and now everyone freaking does it. Pretty huge accomplishment there. 18 receiving touchdowns here. Number 45, Mark Clayton in 1984. 18 receiving touchdowns. Also averaged nearly 93 yards receiving per game, an average greater than a touchdown per game. That's pretty cool. Isaac Bruce, number 44, 1995, most underrated wide receiver. Here it says he recorded 1,781 total receiving yards, which is the second most of all time, as well as catching 119 passes for 13 touchdowns. These are some solid records, like solid numbers. No wonder a lot of these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Like, I think Isaac Bruce is, or Torrey Holt is, and Isaac Bruce might go in. Warner's in already. Clayton's not going. Carter's in. Warner's on here twice already. The first 10. Delome's not going. Peyton's already in. My goodness. Derek Thomas, we're going to mention him in a second. But Kurt Warner, 99. Once again, finished the Super Bowl season as NFL MVP and Super Bowl MVP. Completed, 41 touchdowns, 65% completion, 4,353 total passing yards. That's just annihilate. This is like video game numbers, but this was real life. Derek Thomas, 20 total sacks in 1990. How could I forget that? Forcing 6 fumbles. Jeez. Just a complete monster. 41, Culpepper, 04. Passing for 4,717 passing yards, 39 touchdowns, rushing for 406 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was just a threat across the board. He recorded a 110.9 quarterback rating. That's the record right there, or some kind of record, I guess. Listed as 6th best. God, I got a list. 6th best in NFL history. Not bad. CJ2K. We know what this was, right? He was hoping to get 2,000 rushing yards, and he did, just barely. But his 2,509 total offensive yards was just nuts. Finished in 09. That was number 40. Number 39, Devin Hester in 2007. Set an NFL record for most punts returned for a touchdown with a total of 4, as well as adding 2 kick returns for a touchdown to his season total. Marte Jenkins, barely remember this guy. I think he played for the Cardinals. Yep, there it is. Returned kicks and punts like it was no one's business in 2000. Racked up yardage. He accumulated an NFL record 2,186 total yards. So that's kick returns that season for the Cardinals. You know what that means? They were getting scored on a lot. I'm sorry to say, but that's literally how that happens. When the other team scores, they kick off to your team, and if you're returning those kicks for 2,186 total yards, that means your team's getting scored on enough to get enough kicks sent your way for you to accumulate that many yards. And since he didn't have like 2,500 yard, returns or whatever, or 20, whatever, then clearly, there's probably some 17, 18, 19 yard returns. So that just means he had to just keep racking up yards. And to be healthy that long to get that many yards in a season, that's remarkable. So no shade there. Darren Sharper managed to pick off 9 passes for an NFL record, 376 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty cool. Montana in 89. I'm going to go a little bit faster now. Have a remarkable 70.2% completion percentage and the 5th highest passer rating of all time, 112.4. When you got Jerry Rice and you're in Bill Walsh's offense, even though George Seifert, that was his first year as a head coach there, like, it's still Bill Walsh's offense. Like, I mean, no wonder. They almost three-peated. If it wasn't for the defensive lineman for the Giants, the Niners would have three-peated. Like, I think they would have beaten the Bills. It would have been a great Super Bowl, but the Niners were a better team than the Bills. Wes Welker, 123 passes caught in 2009. This is number 35 overall. Second most in NFL history, as well as accumulating 1,348 receiving yards and catching 4 touchdowns. So, that's crazy. 123 passes, you would think, like 10, 12 touchdowns. Nope, 4. Sad. Anyway, Marshall Faulk, 2K. In just 14 games, he found a way to get 26 total touchdowns. That's huge. He also ran for 1,359 rushing yards. Terrell Davis, or am I saying that right? Is it Terrell Davis, because Terrell Owens is the other one. Yeah, there you go. All right, 2008 rushing yards in 1998. Solid. That's the year they won the Super Bowl, of course, because, I mean, without that guy there, they don't win those 2 Super Bowls back to back. O.J. Simpson, you can love him or hate him, whatever, but here's what he did on the football field. 2,003 total rushing yards. Used to be first all time, and then it ended up being second all time, and now I think it's like, I don't know, 9th all time now, which is crazy. That's how great these athletes are today. He averaged 143.1 yards a game scored 12 touchdowns. And this is in 14 games. So imagine with the schedule they have now, 3 more games, we'd be 2,400 yards. I mean, let's see, 143 times 3. Let's see. Let me do the math on this. Let me grab my other device here. Had to unlock it. 143 times 3, 429. 429 plus 2,003. We'd be looking at 2,432 total yards. That's scary. Very, very scary. Jim Brown. No one can stop Jim Brown, 1963. He averaged 133.1 yards per game and ran for a total of 1,863 yards. This was, I think, also in like 12 games as well. So, or 12 to 14 games. Like, just absolutely nuts. Young in 84. This is the year they won the Super Bowl after, this was Seifert's second Super Bowl. Joe Montana was in Kansas City. Steve Young had now been there as the guy for several seasons because obviously the Montana injury happened and he left. But Steve Young, my TV's tripping. Steve Young had the 4th highest quarterback rating of all time at 112.8. Priest Holmes, I mentioned him earlier with LaDainian Tomlinson with that touchdown record going back and forth. He had an unforgettable 0-3 season, 27 total rushing touchdowns. That's solid. Shaun Alexander, he's often forgot about. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but 27 rushing touchdowns. Oh, excuse me, maybe rushing or total? Total touchdowns, whatever. Averaging 117.5 yards a game. Pretty dope. Chris Dolman, I loved watching him play. Rest in peace, buddy. An 89 absolute sack machine, 21 total sacks. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. Lawrence Taylor, 1986. A literal animal for the New York Giants, it says here. 20 and a half sacks. Hall of Famer. Now we're halfway through. Jerry Rice, 1987. This is a strike-shortened season. So they played 12 games. That means they were missing 4. He accumulated 1,078 total receiving yards, which is still solid. Like, even then, like, guys were getting 11 and 1,200, but 1,078, still pretty good, especially in 12 games. But 22 touchdown receptions in 12 games. That means there's 4 games he didn't play in because, of the, well, they call them the scabs or whatever. I don't know if that's a derogatory term or whatever, but the replacement guys. So just imagine, he probably could have had 4 or 5 more touchdowns, maybe 6. So we'd be talking about 28, maybe, receiving yards. And who knows who else they would have played those first few weeks. If there could have been a weak corner, there could have been a weak defense he could have played against where he could have had 3 touchdowns in a game. So we could be really talking about 30 total receiving touchdowns in a season. So that's nuts. Anyway, Reggie White, number 24, 1987, had a total of 21 sacks. Also in 12 games. So once again, another thing during the strike-shortened season for guys to be setting records or setting really high numbers. It's almost like they were making up for the lost time. And I think Reggie White, that may have been one of his first couple years in the NFL. He does not have the all-time sack record, but he does have a higher sack average per game or per season than Bruce Smith, who beat out Reggie White by 2 sacks, but also played longer than Reggie White did as well. So that's factual information, not opinion, because facts don't care about your feelings. Devin Hester in 06, number 23. Jumped onto the scene in 06 as one of the league's top returners as a rookie. Returned 6 touchdowns that year. I forgot about him earlier. I was thinking about guys who returned a lot of kicks, and I was seeing some names, and I couldn't remember. I was like, there's the guy who set the record. I was thinking of Cordell Patterson, of like Brian Mitchell, but I was like, I couldn't remember Devin Hester's name. I don't know why I forgot, but I won't forget again. And that guy was amazing. Mark Gastineau, 22 total sacks in 1984. Solid year for him. He had that funny-looking sack dance. Didn't do a whole lot with it, but it was very effective. Mark Mosley, the only NFL kicker to ever get the MVP. Also a strike-shortened season, 1982. I think this was also Theismann's last year, or close to his last year. I forget. But yeah, only kicker to ever be named the league's MVP, as he drilled 20 out of 21 field goals during that season for the Skins, and he won that award. So props to him. Barry Sanders, 97. This is the 2,000 rushing yard season. 2,053 rushing yards. 6.1 yards a carry, totaling 14 touchdowns. And the crazy thing is, when they went goal line, they took him out, so they want to ruin his yards per carry and stuff like that. Plus, you're going to be banging bodies and you need him. Man, like, he could have had more touchdowns, but that also means his yards per carry, knowing how he ran the ball, you would have had a first and goal at the 1 and ended up with a second and goal at the 12, and then had a third and goal at 3. You just would have been like, what the hell's going on here? That's just how he ran. He was so great. BD Feathers, a man I've never heard of before. Since most of you probably have no idea who BD Feathers is, but you should. Feathers holds the oldest single-season NFL record for the highest average of yards per carry, standing in at 8.44. How ridiculous! That is ridiculous, and that's unless he's a quarterback. Like if he's a quarterback, I'm not really buying that because their yards per carry is very different than running backs and fullbacks. But 8.4 per carry, hey, that's nothing to scoff at. I'll give you props. Period. Jamal Lewis in 03, 2,066 rushing yards, second all time, highest behind Eric Dickerson. I don't know where it is now because remember this article is what 11, 12 years ago, so who knows? Drew Brees 08, 5,069 passing yards, setting the NFL record, or no, excuse me, just fell short of the NFL record by 15 yards because it was 50-84 for Marino back in 84 when he set that. I know that because I'm supposed to know that as a football fan. Ed Reed in 2004, 358 return yards off at 9 picks. That's huge, man. Most impressive season for the league. Yeah, I'll give you that. 86, Dan Marino. He tossed 44 touchdowns, which stood as an NFL record while posting 92.5 quarterback rating and accumulating 4,746 passing yards. You know, I always said that Dan Marino is probably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And I know people who love Brady and obviously Jim Kelly did a lot for the game, Montana, Manning, etc. But considering what Marino did without weapons that are in the Hall of Fame, because a lot of guys who are in the Hall of Fame quarterback have some Hall of Fame players around them on offense, and Dan does not. Clayton and Duper were fine. You know, he ended up getting Keith Byers and Keith Jackson and also had Irving Fryer for a bit, but none of these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. They were all solid at the time. You know, they did their thing, and people will argue and say, oh, Clayton and Duper should be in, the Marx Brothers, Irving Fryer has some really good numbers overall in his career, but as far as like legit Hall of Fame, top 3, top 5, maybe even top 10 receiving yards of all time, none of those guys are there. Especially now, like forget it. You're not going to see their names pop back up. So I love Dan Marino's work. I think he did a great job. Obviously, that's why he's a Hall of Famer. Jerry Rice, 95, set the single season record for receiving yards of 1,848. Gotta love it. Marvin Harrison in 02, 143 receptions. Man. 143 in 16 games. Got it. God, just amazing. Amazing athletes here. Gale Sayers, 14 touchdowns as well as rushing for 867 yards as a rookie, averaging 5.2 yards a carry, 17.5 yards per reception, also catching 6 touchdown passes. So, pretty good job there as a rookie. Dick Night Train Lane, 14 picks. I know that one. Played for the Cardinals and the Lions. He was also an unlockable character in Tecmo Super Bowl 3. And he was number 81 cornerback great Cardinals. Look it up. You're welcome. Michael Strahan in 2001, 22 and a half sacks, including that Brett Favre one that gave him the record. And you're like, come on, bro. We all know, but whatever. Like, it is what it is. I'm sure there's a lot of people who gave themselves up for sacks, and it is what it is. LaDainian Tomlinson, 2003. Look at this. 2,370 total yards that season. Dude, I'm waiting for the day, and I think it'll happen maybe before my 70th birthday. So we got 25 years ago. I think somebody's going to have 3,000 total yards all-purpose in a season, not including a quarterback, throwing the ball. That's too easy in a way. But as far as rushing the ball, receiving, kick returns, punt returns, and yards for like fumble recoveries or interceptions, all that stuff. Just not throwing the ball. But yeah, I think we'll see a 3,000 total yards season. Don Hudson, remember I mentioned him earlier with those 100 catch seasons, or that one. Caught 74 passes for 17 touchdowns in just 11 games. 1942. There's that word remarkable again, as I keep saying it. 110.1 yards per receiving game. This is video game stuff. LaDainian Tomlinson in 06, NFL record-setting machine in 06. Here it is. All-time high, 31 touchdowns as well as 1815 rushing and 56 passes caught and 508 total yards. Man, this guy had 2,300 yards, 23-33. No, 23-23. There it is. Get some astrology person on that one. Some of his 11 records that season were 14 touchdowns scored in just a 4-game span, 16 touchdowns in a 5-game span, scored 3 touchdowns in 4 straight games, all while becoming the fastest player to score 100 career touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, Tomlinson was also the league's MVP that season. Well, yeah, no kidding. Duh. Randy Moss in 07. Number 6 overall here with these records. Randy Moss in 07, single season record for 23 touchdowns. And remember, Rice in 87 had 22 and missed 4 games because of a league lockout. But anyway, 23 touchdowns, still got to give Moss's credit, as well as snagging 98 passes. Good job. Marino in 84, 5,084 total passing yards, which has clearly been surpassed by now, which is horrible how much and often people did it, because it really doesn't give you the full picture of how great Dan Marino was when he did 5,084 passing yards. Oh, man, you guys really screwed the pooch by letting everyone throw for 5,000 yards now. Anyway, Eric Dickerson in 84. This is a number that still stands today. This article is 11, 12 years old. 2,105 rushing yards still stands today. Guys get close, but not close enough. I think, Adrian Peterson was like 8 yards away. He had 2,097, and I think he got tripped up or caught up in the fourth quarter, like a long run, and he just needed some more yards, and they couldn't do it, and they needed to win the game, and the game was more important than the record. Always. Always, always, always. Tom Brady, number 3. Let's see, 2010, what did he do? He was an MVP, record for number of passes thrown without throwing an interception 335 passes thrown and no interception. I know Bernie Kosar kind of had that record for a bit, with like 100 something back in like 90, 91, 92, and it was surprising then. So for it to be 160 something without a pick, that's crazy. But 335 is nuts, absolutely nuts. 65.9% completing his passes with a pair of rookie tight ends. Oh, one's dead and one's going to the Hall of Fame. You know who they are. Number 2, Peyton Manning. Oh, I went to number 1 too soon. Peyton Manning in 2004 set the record for most touchdown passes in a season when he tossed 49, breaking down Marino's 48 touchdown passes. And we're going to go to number 1, Tom Brady, 50 touchdown passes, 16-0 regular season record. Just annihilated people that year. 68.9% completions, 4,800 passing yards, 117.2 quarterback rating. It says in 2007, Tom Brady was the greatest NFL player alive. Well, he's retired now, and maybe he'll stay retired, and he is going to go down as definitely within the top 5 players. If NFL Films does another, top 100 players of all time, Tom Brady, when this first came out in 2010, was, I think, top 20 or top 30. I'm not 100% sure, because he already had 3 Super Bowl rings in his first, 5 or 6 years. It's crazy. Kind of like what Mahomes is doing now. He's got 2 rings in the first 5 or 6 years. So where Tom is now at the end of his career, or at least nearing the end of his career, I think he might be number 2 behind Rice. And I'd be okay if he was even number 3 behind Jim Brown, because Jim Brown, you have to give it to the guys who are considered the best player at that position. And unless that position is not as important as, the best right guard of all time is not going to get higher than the best receiver of all time. It's just not how the game's going to work in terms of how people analyze stuff. But man, Tom Brady will definitely be I think at lowest, number 3. At highest will be number 2. I don't think there'll ever be anyone seen better at this game than Jerry Rice. And that's no disrespect to Jim Brown and anyone else who played, but Jerry Rice was head and shoulders above everyone else. But Tom Brady, number 1 record here from this 2011 article. Hope I can find something a lot more recent, because I think the autogram record of... Actually, we're going to look for that real quick. Autogram NFL championship appearances. That's what we're going to look for. Ram Super... Or no. NFL championship appearances. Let's see. Championship appearances. Here we go. Forgive the little scratchy sounds in the background. Here we go. Come on, where? He holds the record for highest. No. This might help us. So he's in a Hall of Fame. Big surprise. Just kidding. It's not a surprise at all. This might be it. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait. What does the cross mean? Oh, first team All-Pro, selected to Pro Bowl. Okay, so I actually don't know. Shoot. Oh, we can just, you know what we could do? We could look for NFL championships 1946 to 1955. We'll do that. Oops. So I want to see what this autogram record is. NFL championships 19... Oh, we'll just say list. There we go. Here we go. Wikipedia. All reliable. And it makes it so much easier to see it, too. Perfect. NFL champions 1946. Where are we going? Okay. So, let me see. Is this 1946 to 55? So, Browns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But the Browns didn't have autogram at 57. So he was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 championship appearances. That's a lot. That's a lot. Tom Brady beat that. Got to give the man his respect. Anyway, give me my respect. Hit like, hit share, hit subscribe. Follow me. KJ from OC. Peace out.